All right. Well, it is 12:01, so we will get started. Thank you to everyone for being here to learn about the Milwaukee Robotics Academy. So a quick agenda. We're going to talk about what is FIRST Robotics for anyone who doesn't know. That's the program that we use with the Milwaukee Robotics Academy to get students engaged in STEM education. We'll talk about some of the problems with STEM education in Milwaukee. Then we're going to talk about what the Milwaukee Robotics Academy actually is and what the Milwaukee Robotics Academy does to help some of those problems. And then finally, we'll talk about how you can help with these problems. So first, we'll just do some quick introductions, and I'll hand it over to Javion to introduce himself.
Hi, so my name is Javion Mosley. I'm a metal and plastic fabrication engineer at Rockwell. I'm going to be starting the EDGE Early Career Program with Manufacturing Engineering starting January 2022. I've been a mentor for the Riverside Robo Tigers FRCC Team 2830 since 2016 when I graduated from high school. I'm also an alum of the program. I also went to Riverside, and I was on the Riverside Robo Tigers as well, Team 2830.
Great. Thanks, Javion. And my name is Eric Orlowski. I'm an embedded software engineer in our Logix controller business. I'm actually an LDP alumni from a few months ago. I went through the Software and Control and Intelligent Devices, formerly known as ANS LDP program. Other than that, I graduated from UWM in 2019. And at UWM, I started mentoring FRC Team 2830, the Riverside Robo Tigers, out in Milwaukee. And that was a great experience to learn about how STEM education actually works in Milwaukee and some of the challenges with it. And then before that, I'm an alumni of FRC Team 2062, Core Robotics, out in Waukesha. So that's my high school days. So to start us off, let's learn a little bit about what FIRST actually is. And with anything, the most definitive source is, of course, Mr. Morgan Freeman.
This is the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl of smarts, that is. It's a life-changing competition. It's kids having fun, competing, working together to dream up, design, and build robots.
It's just an exhilarating feeling. It's like I'm using power tools.
They're having the hardest fun they'll ever have. And they're becoming our next generation of engineers and innovators. FIRST, come out! For inspiration and recognition of science and technology. My teachers were some of the greatest influences on my life. By challenging and trusting me, these mentors got me to understand that I could do anything I put my mind to. FIRST mentors are changing kids' lives every day. Professional engineers, teachers, parents, teaming up with young people not just to build robots, but to build confidence and self-respect.
I'm around people that I can get along with, that we can talk computer lingo with.
FIRST was founded by one of our greatest inventors, Dean Kamen. Dean saw that kids mostly look up to sports heroes and movie stars.
So we said, if we've got a culture now that's obsessed with sports and entertainment, let's inspire these kids to be big thinkers the same way Shaquille O'Neal can inspire them to spend dozens of hours a week bouncing a ball.
Our president agrees.
Scientists and engineers ought to stand side by side with athletes and entertainers as role models. And here at the White House, we're going to lead by example. We're going to show young people how cool science can be.
250,000 kids aged 6 to 18 compete at all different levels. In 2 FIRST Lego Leagues, the FIRST Tech Challenge. And at the high school level, the FIRST Robotics Competition.
The only difference between this sport and all the others is every kid on our teams can turn pro. There's a job out there for every one of these kids.
Students who take part in FIRST are 50% more likely to go to college and twice as likely to major in science or engineering.
I definitely know that I want to pursue engineering.
Once they've tasted what the power of knowledge is, that it can be fun and rewarding, they won't go back.
There's no doubt FIRST works.
10 or 15 or 20 years from today, some kid in those stands will have cured Alzheimer's or AIDS or cancer, or built an engine that doesn't pollute. Look at these kids. They're the future.
I feel like I can go and do anything I want to do because of this program.
Someone took the time to guide and inspire me. It changed my life. Take some time. Go to usfirst.org.
Right, so that's a quick explanation of what FIRST is. So let's dive a little bit deeper into that. So FIRST actually consists of 3 programs. And at the youngest level, there's FIRST Lego League. And FLL has 3 divisions. At the youngest level, there's FLL Discover. That's ages 4 to 6, very young elementary school. And that's mostly an in-school program, kids using Duplo blocks to create different things. The next level up from that is FLL Explorer, formerly known as FLL Junior. That's ages 6 through 10. And this is where they use the Lego WeDo system to create some moving Lego models and then a poster based on that year's challenge. And then at the oldest level, there's FLL Challenge, which is for older grade school and middle school. And that's where they use the Lego Mindstorm robots to complete different challenges. And then they make a presentation based on a different theme every year. And these are smaller teams of around 3 to 10 students. The next level up from that is the FIRST Tech Challenge. This is a middle school and high school competition. These are smaller teams, usually microwave-sized metal robots. And this is kind of the middle level of FIRST. And then finally, there's the FIRST Robotics competition. And this is a high school competition for larger teams. And this is where you see the big robots, 5 foot tall, 120-pound robots competing on fields the size of a basketball court. And this is kind of the highest level of FIRST Robotics. And this is the level that we elect to focus on for the Milwaukee Robotics Academy. And the reason why is because what we're trying to do is build a pipeline to college, to trade school, to careers. And at the end of the day, you need to build the end of the pipeline first. If we started with grade school or middle school students, then they'd have nowhere to go after our programs and we'd lose them in high school. So it's really important to start with high school, and then we can actually use those high schoolers to start mentoring some of the younger kids in FLL and FTC. So FRC is the level that we really choose to focus in on. So with that, let's learn a little bit more about the FIRST Robotics competition.
FIRST Robotics competition is the world's landmark robotics competition for students.
In school, you read about stuff, but in FIRST as a whole, you actually go and do it.
In the beginning of January, the challenge comes out every year. Under strict rules and limited time and resources, you have to design, build, program, and test a robot.
There's no blueprint. We get a few rules and guidelines to follow, and then it's up to those students to find something that works.
There's nothing better than just seeing your robot on the field playing for the first time. They're all there like, is it gonna work? Is it gonna work? And then when it works, it's the best feeling ever.
You have mentors that are actually in the field that can tell you, oh, this is why this works, and this is the science behind it. And you're like, oh, wow, that makes so much sense.
They do a great job, not just about STEM, but about life, how to go through college, how to go through, a tough, physics class.
At face value, FIRST Robotics competition is a robot competition, but at the end of the day, it's so much more than that.
People ask me like, you build robots? I says, no, we're really running a business and all the things that go along with that.
We deal with a lot of marketing, social media.
I've learned business sides of things,
problem solving, working in groups.
I'm learning how to communicate with people, how to reach out to local businesses.
So we kind of have robotics as the starting point, but we branch out to different areas and expand.
So the ultimate goal every year is always to get to the FIRST championship.
The FIRST championship is basically like the Olympic for robots.
There's hundreds of teams from all over the world there, and you get to see some of the best teams that exist.
It's very competitive, but you're friends with the people that you're going against. It's like a sport, but in its own way, it's better than a sport.
Being part of FIRST, it's really changed my life and, you know, how I think about myself, how I think about others.
Participating in FIRST actually taught me that I'm capable of doing anything that I set my mind to.
FIRST has really inspired me to give back to my old elementary school. I'm trying to help their robotics program that just started this year. I want those kids to have the opportunity to learn about STEM.
As a participant in the FIRST program in high school, you get access to $80 million worth of scholarships.
There are scholarships for colleges, universities, as well as technical programs.
It also looks really good on the actual application to be on FIRST.
FIRST does a really great job trying to open programs to make sure that you could actually accomplish anything in STEM, no matter where you're from, your background, your language, or anything like that.
I really do consider myself part of the STEM community, and I couldn't be more prouder to say that.
FIRST Robotics Competition is one of 4 engaging FIRST programs that shows students unique challenges and helps them learn new engineering skills and real-world skills that'll help them in the future.
FIRST is the future. FIRST is accomplishment.
FIRST is passion.
FIRST is inspiring.
FIRST is changing my story.
Good. So that's a good explanation of what FRC is. So let's dive a little bit deeper and talk about what the season actually looks like. So the first thing that we do in the October through December timeframe, before we even get the challenge for that year, is we really focus in on training these students with all of the skills they need. Obviously, there are a lot of really important STEM skills here. Most of these kids come to us, they don't know how to read a ruler, use a screwdriver, much less write a line of code, work in CAD. So we really teach the students a lot of STEM skills here. So a lot of construction skills, a lot of design skills, learning CAD, learning different mechanical principles. There's all sorts of electrical work that happens from wiring up the control system, all sorts of different sensors, motors, and coders. There's a lot of programming that goes into this. The language that we use is Java, but there's a lot of control systems programming, especially different types of vision tracking. So really a lot of advanced stuff that happens that we get to teach the students about. But beyond just these STEM skills, there's also a lot of business skills that factor into this. There's a lot of public speaking, actually. It's a part of FIRST Robotics. Students are talking to judges, they're talking to community members, to other teams, to different potential sponsors. So public speaking is actually a really important skill that students learn through FIRST Robotics, and then we try and teach them about. There's a lot of outreach that goes into this too. We're constantly trying to promote our teams, to promote this program. So that's another great skill for these students to learn. And these FRC teams actually have big budgets. And because of that, the students really get engaged in the fundraising and the budgeting process. And that's a really important skill for the students to learn. And above all, in this preseason timeline, we're really trying to build a team with these students and make them excited for the season. In January through February, that's really where we get into preparing for our competitions. So every January, a different challenge is released for that year. And every year, it's something completely different. So last year, it was shooting foam balls into a goal. In the past, we've been like putting milk crates onto basically a teeter-totter, hanging inner tubes, shooting frisbees, kicking soccer balls. So every year, it's just a completely different game. And you actually team up with 2 other teams for each match, and you play against 3 other teams. So there really is a lot of strategy that's involved, and it really is like a sporting competition. Obviously, in the January through February timeline, that's where the teams build, program, design, and wire their robots. So that's where all of the engineering really happens. But on top of that, there's also a lot of awards and a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with the robots. So the students create a website, create a social media presence. There are all sorts of awards around your outreach, around your entrepreneurship, around different things with your robot. So there's a lot of engineering that happens in this timeline, but there's a lot of other stuff that happens too. And then finally, in the March and April timeline, that's where we have our competitions. So the first level is our regional competitions. And these are big competitions. These are around 40 to 60 teams from the area, and sometimes we'll even have teams come from out of the country. Usually these competitions run Thursday through Saturday, and they actually happen in big arenas. So like the competition that happens in Milwaukee happens at the Panther Arena downtown, and then a lot of times teams will be able to travel to another competition in Chicago, lacrosse, Minneapolis. We've gone out down to Arkansas. So you'll actually get to travel a little bit for this. And this is something that Rockwell really helps support mentors in doing. In the past, Rockwell has basically treated these competitions like a business trip. So they'll help you with any travel expenses that you incur going to these competitions, hotel expenses. And for the most part, you actually don't have to take paid time off for these competitions. So Rockwell is really generous in supporting our mentors and making sure that they're able to support these competitions. After that, if you qualify, there is the FIRST Championship. And this is a huge competition, 400 teams from around the world. It's held either at a big convention center or at a big stadium. And this is just an amazing event for the students and for the mentors to be a part of. Right, so now I'm going to hand it over to Javion, and he's going to talk about some of the problems with STEM education here in Milwaukee.
So in Milwaukee, it's always this talk about, how great the introduction of tech space to the kids will be and help build the skills for the future, or how great of an impact they'll have for the community and so forth, until it's time to act. So MPS is one of the largest school districts in the city of Milwaukee. So with the current situation, even previous to the pandemic, MPS has faced budget cuts which don't allow for funds to go towards these programs to help build these future skills in the tech space. So these are cuts on the classes that are offered for these programs, such as the engineers classes that have taken the Riverside that are no longer even offered at Riverside anymore. In some cases, the students that are enrolled in these programs have largely been cut, and they have caps in place where they don't want too many students in these classes, and some just aren't interested in these classes at all, and these kids just aren't taking the classes. So while another solution is making these after school opportunities, when making these after school opportunities, it's not always seen as a solution, because it's really only for the ones who really want to try it and engage in it, who actually go and take the time to do these things. But if you don't give them time within the classroom to at least try it out, they never develop the interest to want to go ahead and do the after school opportunities. Another thing with going after school is transportation. So for the kids, if they want to be a part of this, say, how do they get there? a lot of the kids within MPS, they don't have the busing. They either have bus tickets or they find their own way of means of transportation to get to and from school. So there's not enough programs within the city, and they're all concentrated, say, in like the downtown area. You don't have any elsewhere. You can't have a large number of kids all going to these programs. So one, they're going to fill up. Two, if it takes a kid 2 hours to bus to this place there and back after school and then going home afterwards, that is a little discouraging for them to even want to be a part of the program. So that also discourages kids. That's why we need more programs across the city to make sure we have more STEM across Milwaukee. A lot of the inner city programs also lack support from parents and teachers, which can sometimes hinder how successful a program is. Because if you don't have the teachers to come in who are willing to help and support, sometimes that can also not be good because now that you don't have as many people willing to be supportive with the student in their journey. Same for the parents as well. Now, next three that play a bigger part in the student's environment is the stigma, the lack of confidence, and patience. So within like the school world, there's sometimes a stigma that is put on people who go into these tech fields, into these programs like, oh, you have to be good at math, you have to be good at science to even go ahead and do these programs. But sometimes it's not even the case. Sometimes you may not, we've had students where they can't read a rule, they don't know how well to do the fractions or convert numbers. But just because you don't know it initially doesn't mean you can't be taught. That's where the lack of practice comes in. Sometimes a student just needs practice on these technical things, like as far as math and science, and they can pick up the rest of the things along the way. Because practice makes perfect, and by giving them one chance to succeed, they can continue to deliver on that, and also helps build confidence within the space as well. So a lot of times they feel, oh, I'm not good enough, I can't do it because I wasn't already good, but that's not the case, and anybody can be taught something. So now, Milwaukee Robotics Academy. So what is the Milwaukee Robotics Academy? So MRA is focused on supporting STEM education in the underserved population in the city of Milwaukee. So at the academy, we have our curriculum based upon the FIRST Robotics Competition, or FRC for short, which Eric was discussing earlier. So this is geared for high school students to participate in a game challenge that changes on a yearly basis. Typically, like Eric was saying, January is the start of the actual build season. So like no matter their initial skill set, everyone will be able to come in and learn everything about robotics, improve the skills they already have, and we also have a very hands-on environment where students can actively engage in the learning while also have fun doing it around their peers. We also have mentors who are real engineers, and the students are able to learn side by side actual professionals who are in the field themselves. So this helps prepare the students for them working in a team environment while also delivering technical skills that they can use in the future. And the longer they're in these kinds of programs, like MRA, the longer they'll have time to hone these skills and be set up for success in the future. So we want the Milwaukee Robotics Academy to be a safe place for students to learn, grow, and increase the number of students involved in STEM in the Milwaukee area.
Good. Thanks, Javion. And I'm going to talk now about how the Milwaukee Robotics Academy really helps address some of the issues with STEM education in Milwaukee. So the first thing that we do is we provide all sorts of free training to students in the Milwaukee area. And the emphasis here is on free. We really don't believe in charging students for any of these programs because the students that we're targeting will be put off by any sort of fee. So we really pride ourselves that this training is 100% free to our students. So this summer we started our summer robotics workshops. And this is where we taught students the basics of construction, electrical, programming, all sorts of fundamental skills to robotics and STEM. This fall, in a couple of weeks, we'll be starting up our fall robotics workshops. And that's where we're, again, introducing students to these concepts to transition them into full FRC teams. So they'll learn all sorts of construction skills, wiring, electrical, and we'll also introduce them to some of the business skills that we talked about earlier: public speaking, outreach, fundraising, social media, website, all sorts of really important skills for them to learn. A big place where the Milwaukee Robotics Academy helps is with mentoring. All of these FIRST programs are really based on mentoring. These aren't a science fair where we just leave a student alone to figure something out. The mentors are really central to the success of these programs. But the problem is, in Milwaukee, that mentoring oftentimes doesn't exist. With these suburban teams, a lot of the mentoring comes from parents who happen to work in technical fields. That just doesn't exist as much in Milwaukee. And because of that, it's oftentimes a struggle to find mentors for these teams. So volunteer mentoring is crucial, people coming in for a couple hours a week, either to run workshops or just to help teams during the season. But then the other part of this is actually paid mentoring. With FRC teams, it's helpful to have people that come in for a couple hours a week. That's great to help the students through problems and to be able to run these sessions effectively. But we also really need people who are willing to put in the time to actually run these teams. But it's a big time commitment, and we understand that for a lot of people, that's just not viable as a volunteer opportunity. So this is where we come in by providing some stipend roles to the lead mentors on these teams, lead technical mentors, lead administrative mentors, and then for our school-based teams, our school liaisons, either a teacher or someone in faculty. And with this stipend, these people are actually able to put in the time that they need to run these FRC teams. And then finally, we actually have a new robotics site in the River West neighborhood. This is a old church, part of the Mesmer Middle School. And this build space provides everything that FRC teams need to run. So all sorts of basic hand tools and power tools, everything that teams could need. There's a bunch of CNC machining here, so students can learn advanced machining, 3D printing capabilities, computers for students and teams to use, and then also a full competition field for teams to improve themselves for these competitions. So, how can you help and how can you get involved? The first and the biggest need that we have is volunteering. So there are a couple ways to help. Starting in October, there's some workshops that we'll be running, everything from building a robot, wiring, programming to business skills. We're going to need a lot of help for those workshops, so any time that you can give to help those workshops will be great. After those workshops, then we'll be starting FRC teams, and we'll be needing a bunch of mentor support to run those FRC teams. And it's all those same things. It's construction, it's electrical, it's programming, and it's all sorts of business things, and just people working with these high school students to make them enjoy what they're doing. So we'll need all sorts of support for that. There's a lot of support that the facility itself needs, things like running our CNC machines or 3D printers, maintaining all of our tools. So there's all sorts of stuff that we need for that. And something that I want to emphasize is you can put in 10 to 20 hours a week and really be a key volunteer, but there's also all sorts of roles for people who can only give an hour or two every now and then. So whatever your time commitment is, there are things that you can do to help us out. If you're willing to take a bigger leap, there are all sorts of paid mentoring roles to actually lead FRC teams. These roles are really great because they give you all sorts of opportunities in leadership that you just wouldn't get earlier in your career at a company the size of Rockwell. For the last couple of years, I've been running the FRC team at Riverside, and that's given me all sorts of opportunities to do things like manage budget, manage people, manage training programs, projects, all sorts of things that at a company the size of Rockwell, I just wouldn't get the opportunity to do this early in my career. So anyone who's looking to develop as a leader, this is a great opportunity for you to hone some of those leadership skills and actually get paid for it. Of course, this comes with a time commitment. Usually 10 to 20 hours a week for October through April. The hours are somewhat flexible, but it's generally going to be evenings on weekdays and then some weekends. So there is a time commitment, but you're compensated for that time commitment. There are two types of people that we're looking for these roles. We're looking for lead technical mentors. That's someone to lead the process of training students in these engineering skills, leading the students through the process of building, designing, wiring, programming the robot. So for these technical roles, we're looking for someone with some engineering experience. First experience would be nice, but it's not required. But we absolutely do need someone with some engineering experience. And then the lead administrative mentor is a different role, and that's really someone to make sure that the team runs properly. So making sure that students and mentors get to the right spots, managing budgets, managing the business aspect of the team. And that's someone that doesn't need an engineering background. And really the biggest quality we're looking for here is someone who can work with people and work with students. And then finally, donations are always appreciated. We're starting a site basically from scratch. So all sorts of in-kind donations are appreciated. Any type of tools are great. Building materials, metal, fasteners, lumber to build the field. That's all great stuff that we could definitely use. Once we get into the build season, a lot of these students are coming straight from school or a meeting on weekends. And a lot of the times we actually need to feed these students. And this can become a significant expense if it's coming out of the academy's budget. So anyone who's able to help and donate a meal, that's also really appreciated. And of course, financial help is always appreciated. The academy has a bunch of expenses from paying rent on our facilities, tools, our paid mentoring. We help the students out with bus tickets for students who need that for the program to be viable. So any sort of financial contribution is absolutely appreciated. So on this next slide, I have two links. One link is to our website where you can find things to apply to volunteer, to sign your students up for our teams if you have high school age kids or you know any high school age kids. Anyone in the Milwaukee area, we're accepting to join our FRC teams and to participate in our workshops. So there's a link in our site to sign people up. And then there's a donation link if you'd like to help out that way. And then I also have an application for lead mentoring roles. And that's for those people who want to take on that extra responsibility and lead an FRC team and actually get some financial compensation for that. So that's all we have. So thank you everyone for taking the time to be with us today. So now if anyone has any questions, we would be happy to answer them.
Hey Eric, thank you for the presentation. Do you know for if we are already currently mentoring a team, where can we go for resources? I know Rockwell will sponsor teams that have Rockwell mentors. if our team is currently not sponsored by Rockwell, do you know who we can get in contact with about that sponsorship?
Probably Jeannie Fensteroy, who's on this call, would be the best person to contact about Rockwell sponsorship. So if you don't have her contact, I can help you out with that.
Yeah, please reach out to me, and my colleagues Sarah Kaufman and I can help navigate the way.
Okay, thank you very much.
Certainly, Trent. While I've got the floor, Eric and Javion, I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank you for your leadership. This is such an important role that you're playing in Milwaukee. It's sorely needed, and I apologize for the background noise. My neighbors mowing their lawn. But in any event, this really gives me an opportunity to express my gratitude to the two of you publicly, if you will, for your leadership in this space. I know all the hard work that you all have been doing. I know how much the young people will appreciate this. You're giving them a sense of belongingness, a sense of all you really need to succeed in this area is to be curious. And so just really, I could go on and on about how much I appreciate what you all are doing, but this Lunch and Learn was terrific, and I just want everyone on this call to know, commend you for your leadership. So I'll stop there. I feel like I'm rambling now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie, and thanks for all of the support that Rockwell gives to FIRST Robotics. So any other questions? All right. So if not, I will stop the recording. You guys should all have my email. I'll send up a follow-up after this meeting for people to get involved. And if you guys have any questions or want to get in touch, just shoot me an email, send me a message in Teams, and I'd be happy to talk to you and help out in any way that I can. So thanks again for everyone for joining, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.